For Herlock Sol, I am Skegivetter, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Norse Code. Now, yesterday I was asked about some books and YouTube videos that I could recommend to be other sources. And I highly recommend that you go to other sources besides just me. I'm learning right along with you, and I certainly don't know everything. But rather than answering that person directly, I thought there might be more of you who could benefit from having a list of books and YouTube channels and whatnot that I would recommend currently. So this is going to be a short episode, just something to kind of get that information out there. And those of you watching on YouTube, you may notice I'm not dressed as a Viking today. Instead, I am wearing some of the new Norse Code merch. We have t-shirts and hoodies. What I'm wearing currently is a shield design. This is actually a shield that an ancestor of mine used, and I'll have a whole other episode as to how I know that and where that design came from. I'll wait until I actually build the actual shield to go with it to do that episode. And then the other design that we have is just the Norse Code logo. I will put a link in the description as to where you can go to get these pieces of merch. And we have a bunch more designs that are currently being worked that will be out shortly. But into what I wanted to talk about, I'm going to start off with some YouTube channels that I recommend. First would be the Wisdom of Odin. The Wisdom of Odin is actually the channel that inspired me to start doing this. Jacob's a pretty cool guy. He does a lot of research. He really delves into a lot of the deeper aspects of Norse paganism, has great explanation as to what everything is. I highly recommend him. I know he's currently traveling the world and kind of touching on paganism throughout the world and how it relates back to Norse paganism and the similarities and the differences, which is really cool. He also is one of the founders, I should say, of the Fellowship of Northern Traditions, who I've mentioned before on this show. They are the first recognized by the government church of Norse paganism. I know they're trying to build a great hall. They do gatherings all over the country, actually all over the world. They do some in Scandinavia and the UK now, currently too. But great source, highly recommend him. Link to his channel down in the description. Next up would be Norse Magic and Beliefs. This is another great resource. Now, I don't always agree with the conclusions that he draws, but I can't argue with his research. He does a phenomenal job delving into all of the sources and laying out all the facts that we know from an archaeological perspective and anthropological perspective, and then draws his conclusions from that. Like I said, I don't always agree with his conclusions, but as a purely a source for the facts, amazing source. Love watching his channel. Next up would be Ocean Keltoi. I might be butchering that pronunciation. There'll be a link down in the description. He's another great resource who delves into the sources more so for the stories than the paganism side of it, whereas Norse Magic and Beliefs is more the paganism side than the stories. But both guys, they really delve deep. They get a lot of the information. They cite all their sources. Fantastic place to learn more. Highly recommend both of them. And then finally, Jackson Crawford. How can I not recommend Jackson Crawford? He is a linguistic professor out in Colorado who specializes in the Norse language and the Norse stories. If you want to know about the language, about and some more about the anthropology and archaeology behind it, how to speak the language, how the proper pronunciations, Jackson Crawford is the guy to go to. He's not a Norse pagan. He doesn't really dive into that portion of it very often. Purely for information, great source. And all 4 of those YouTube channels I just recommended will be down in the description below. Speaking of Jackson Crawford, that leads us right into books. First up would be the Poetic Edda. So this is the Poetic Edda, Stories of the Norse Gods and Heroes, translated, edited with introduction by Jackson Crawford. So the one thing I like about Jackson Crawford is he doesn't just do pure translation from Old Norse to English. He does a translation from Old Norse to modern English. So the way it reads actually sounds like it makes more sense. If you're doing a deep study of the Poetic Eddas, might not be the best source. A more pure translation might be what you're looking for, but if you're just looking to get the stories and make sure you understand what's going on, this is the book you want. Sticking with Jackson Crawford, I don't have a place to put these books. There you go. The Saga of the Volsungs, with the Saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, also translated by Jackson Crawford. Great book. Like I said before, he does a translation from Old Norse to modern English, so it's a lot easier to read. And if you're just looking for the stories, this is the book to go to. Final book I have from Jackson Crawford. I'm sure he's working on more translations, other books, but these are the 3 that are currently available. The Wanderer's Havamal by Jackson Crawford. So this is the Havamal, obviously. And again, he translates from Old Norse to modern English. The nice thing about this is it's a small book. I keep this in my hiking pack, and whenever I go hiking, when I stop for a rest or whatever, I pull this out and I read from it. So, love this book. Love having it when I go hiking. Sticking with the Havamal, the Study Havamal, 3 Norse or Old Norse, 3 English translations journal. This is a really interesting book, especially if you're looking to really dive deep into the Havamal and to really study it. So what this has the Old Norse and then 3 different English translations from 3 different translators. Each one's a little bit different because it's not easy to go directly from Old Norse to English. So people take their best crack at it. So you have that on one side of the page, and then on the next side, it's just an area for notes. So as you study it, as you read it, you can go through and make notes and really dive into what the Havamal means and how to live it on your daily life. The next couple books are all Asatru, so these are specifically, there goes my dogs. These are specifically about Asatru and paganism. First is Essential Asatru, Walking the Path of Norse Paganism by Diana Paxson. So it's just a good general reference book for Asatru and just Norse paganism in general. Then you have The Practical Heathen's Guide to Asatru by Patricia Lafayllve. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. This is another good general book for Asatru and Norse paganism. Some of the things I really like about this book in particular is it goes into how to build rituals from scratch. So, it's got some prayers and rituals in it, but if you want to make your own, this kind of goes through how to do that, which is very useful. And then the final Asatru book that I have here is Odin's Chosen, Handbook of Asatru, by, oh god, I'm going to butcher these pronunciations, by Faolchu Ifreann and Tyrsock Josephsson. Again, if you're watching and I butchered your name, I'm sorry. But this is another good general book for Asatru and Norse paganism. This has a lot more rituals and bloats and prayers in it. And I've actually taken some of the rituals out here, modified them a little bit, and used them. In fact, I'm using one of them on March 31st down at Nature's Touch in Gettysburg. We're going to do a hammer ritual, taking pendants of Mjolnir and calling down Thor to bless them and protect the wearers of them. So that's going to be a fun ritual, and I'm going to tape some of it, and we'll get it out on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. But yeah, another great reference to have. Let's talk about runes for a moment. So we have the Icelandic book of Futhark. So this is a really nice reference for the meanings of the Futhark, where it comes from. I don't see an author's name on here, so I can't give credit there. But yeah, this is a really great book. If you're studying the runes, this is a great book to have. It delves into them, and not just the Elder Futhark. It has the Younger Futhark and the Anglo-Saxon Futhark in it as well. If you're doing any kind of rune casting or rune reading, which I will be doing a rune casting video very shortly. I just did a class on it, so I'm pretty much prepared to do the video on it, the episode. So that's going to be coming up soon. I just need to have a little bit of time to put it together. But Runes for Beginners by Luther Chamberlain. I don't like the first half of this book. First half of this book, she goes into how to cast runes, how to read the runes for divination and that, and I don't like her explanation of it. She treats it way too much like tarot. And while there's a lot of crossover between tarot and runes, and you can use tarot spreads with runes, it just does it too close to tarot for my liking. Not traditional way of casting runes. However, the second half of this book is the meanings behind the runes, and that is spectacular. This is my go-to reference for the runes. When I pull a rune, I don't have them all memorized yet, so if I need to look up their meaning, this is the book I go to for that. It's absolutely fantastic for those meanings. It really goes into details as to what it means, how to use that meaning towards divination or magic or whatever. So love that. Since we're talking about magic, Trolldom, Spells and Methods of the Norse Folk Magic Tradition by Johannes Bjorn Garbach. So this is a fun book. It's got a lot of magic. It's got I can't remember the name of it. So I've been studying Appalachian magic for a while, since I'm in Appalachian Mountains, and there's a lot of old wives' tales and little remedies and whatnot in that. This is the Norse version of that. So there's a lot of remedies. Let's see, how to wash away the evil eye, get good death into the weapons, curios inserted into the gun stock. It is not exclusively Old Norse. It's Scandinavian and Icelandic. So it's stuff from the Old Norse, stuff from post-Norse, and up to semi-modern times. But a lot of interesting stuff. If you're into magic, this is definitely a good resource to have. And then the Sorcerer Screed, the Icelandic book of magic spells. I love this. It's not from the Old Norse times. It's not from the Viking Age. This is much more, I don't even want to say modern, but like 1600s through 1800s in Iceland, where they were Christian, but they still had a lot of Old Norse kind of teachings that were there in the back of their mind. What this is primarily is different staves. If you're familiar with Icelandic staves, they're kind of like bind runes, but a little bit different. But these are a bunch of different staves. How to use them, what their meanings are. A lot of them are Christian-centered, but that doesn't mean they can't work. So again, if you're into magic, this is a really fun book to have. Some of you may remember I had mentioned at some point that I was going to do a video on a runic calendar. I started creating a calendar, which is a lot of tedious work because I'm recreating it from scratch using our more modern measurements as to when the full moons are, when the solstices are, and all that, because it's a little bit more accurate. And the old runic calendar had to be updated every couple hundred years anyway, so I'd have to update it. So I figured I'd just start from scratch. That actually led into a little bit of headache trying to figure some of it out. So I ended up buying this book, the Nordic Animist Year by Rune, Hjarno, Rasmussen. I only just got this book not too long ago, but so far it's been a great resource for the runic calendar. So I'm kind of redoing that a little bit. Eventually I'll get that finished and I'll do an episode on the runic calendar. But this goes a lot into the dates and times of the different the solstices, the equinoxes, the holidays, and more so from a calendar perspective, when to do it, the time, the dates, the seasons, how to develop the runic calendar. So it's another good resource if that's something that you're into. Then the last couple books I have, I should put these up one at a time. So these are from Fateful Signs. These next two. One is the Havamal. It's a beautiful hardcover book. I've already shown a couple Havamals. I like this one because it gives the Old Norse, it gives the English translation, and has beautiful artwork along with it. So if you're just reading it for the fun of it, having that extra artwork really adds to it. And like I said, it's a really beautiful red-bound hardcover book with gold embossing. Gorgeous book to have on your bookshelf. They also have the... Oh, there goes my pile of books. I'll have to clean those up. They also have the Voluspa. So this is a blue hardbound book with silver embossing. And again, it has the Old Norse, the English, and some very beautiful illustrations in it as well. This is a great book to read if you're just in it for the entertainment of it, for the enjoyment of it. And then finally, the Norse Gods, retold and illustrated by Johan Egergrans. I love this book. It's another hardbound book. It's got a lot of the stories from the Eddas and the Sagas, but retold in modern English with absolutely beautiful illustrations. If you're looking to just be entertained and enjoy stories as opposed to studying them, this is a great book to have. The extra illustrations really add to it. I believe he has a couple other books out. These are not cheap, so I only have this one Norse God book. I believe he has a couple others that hopefully this year I'll be picking up at least one more of them. But that's all I have book-wise. There's a lot of other books out there that I want to get. There's a bunch more on my shelf that I don't necessarily recommend. They're not bad by any means, but these are better references. So I'll probably do an update to this at some point in the future as I get more books and more YouTube channels pop up and whatnot. So there will be links down in the description for all of the YouTube videos that I mentioned. There will also be a link for our Shopify site, in which you can buy the Norse Code merch. And I'll have a list of the books and authors in the description as well that you can grab onto and go find them on Amazon or Grimfrost or any of one of the multitude of other places that you can get these books. So I hope you've enjoyed this slightly shorter episode. These are all great resources and definitely things that I recommend for you to go and pick up yourself. Watch these YouTube videos, get these books, read them, learn more about the mythology and the practice, and really just enjoy these extra resources. Links will be down in the description for the YouTube channels. There'll be a listing of all these books and their authors, and our Shopify site in which you can start buying the Norse Code merch. And if you do buy some, please take a picture of yourself wearing it and send it to me. I'd love to see you guys wearing my face. That's assuming you get the one with our logo on it. I will be posting on Facebook and Instagram soon. Once I have one more design that's almost finished. Once I get that one out, I'll do a much bigger post. So anyone listening or watching this, you guys are the first ones to know that merch is available. So, thank you for listening to me. Please like us on Facebook, the Norse Code Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Norse Code Podcast. Follow me on Instagram, Skagivetter. And now on TikTok. Honestly, I'm not a fan of TikTok. My fiance convinced me that we have to do it, so I'm going to let her run that. So we'll just do some videos from time to time on there, and that is at the Norse Code. So follow us there. We don't have much up yet, but we have some really, really fun stuff planned that'll be on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook as well. You're going to love it. I really want to tell you, but shouldn't. It'll be coming out in about a week or so. So watch for that. So thank you for listening to me ramble. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and following and listening and all that good stuff. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And until next time, goodbye.